in the chat. But essentially, then I went to work in the IT industry for about 20 years. And bear in mind, when I left uni in '97, the internet had only just gone public. So the first company I worked for was a computer services company, but they didn't actually have internet access or email, and no one thought that was weird. Yeah, so in about, I guess it was around 2003 or 4, then I decided that I was doing an IT career. I'd done electronic engineering formally, still quite interested in electronics and things, decided that I should build some robots again. And I looked online on the internet in 2004 to see if I could find like how it would be easy. Is there any easy methods of making a human-sized walking robot that walks on 2 legs? And of course, that's not easy really, and there weren't any. So I decided to start the website and work out how to do it and write about it myself. So that's xrobots.co.uk, which has been my blog ever since. And I just started trying to build robots that have wooden, windscreen wiper motors. I don't think Arduino was in the very early days, so there were some PIC chips. The early ones were like timers with a Visual Basic 6 program writing to the parallel port or something like that. If you go on my website, there's a section on the drop down for older Android projects, and yeah, I've kind of carried on with that all up to the modern day. So if you've seen Robot X in my channel, which is a bipedal robot, that's like the 10th version since 2004, pretty much. Somewhere along the lines, I built a replica of R2D2, and I built some Iron Man stuff, which is where a lot of my YouTube following came from. But again, there's mechanics and electronics in there, so that's pretty much the history. So I worked in an IT company, which was Aon, basically, the biggest insurance company in the world, for 10 years, from about 2004 to 2014. So YouTube didn't exist before that. And during the time I worked there in that 10 years, basically YouTube came along. 3D printing became more accessible because of the RepRap project. Came out of Bath Uni in it was about 2003 that started. I remember following the early blog. And, Arduino, can't really remember, but electronics and Adafruit and SparkFun and open source and all these modules you can put together with libraries, all that stuff came along. So during my time at Aon, doing enterprise architecture, basically, for Europe, Middle East and Africa, I built projects, put them on YouTube, and I left because a toy company, Blades Toys in Portsmouth, found my YouTube channel and basically recruited me to do prototyping on the strength of the stuff on my YouTube channel. So I did that for a couple of years, worked for a startup for a year, and now I'm full-time on YouTube. So that's the brief history.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thank you so much for that. So Jay, if you want to take it away.
So you seem to have a really long history with robotics. Do you have a favorite robot? Tell us more.
What one I've made, or a fictional one? Or do you want both answers?
I guess both
answers. Yeah.
I think favorite fictional one's Terminator, but not for any specific reason. Mainly because of probably the history of trying to build walking robots. My favorite project generally is the one I haven't started yet, usually, which is the one I thought, oh, that'll be a really good idea. And that's the one that I'm thinking about usually. The ones that I've already done and it's like become a bit harder, generally my least favorite. That said, OpenDog version 2 I'm pretty happy with that because that walks and that's worked pretty well. So my favorite project at the moment, I'll just give you a little preview. It's sat right here. Is this huge white thing. It's about 45 centimeters in diameter and the wheels are 200 millimeters. And this is my new ROS robot. So I've done a bit with ROS. That orange robot next to it was my previous attempt. And I said I was going to do a better version, and this is it. So this one's got 2 brushless motors in it with an O drive to control them, so on 24 volts. It's got a NVIDIA Jetson Xavier NX in it, which is the main compute module. And it's going to have an RP LiDAR A2 on it. And I'm currently, so the first video goes out next Tuesday, which is the mechanical build, and then it'll be 2 weeks for me to get ROS running on it, which I'm trying to do now, and work through the finer points of TF and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So at the moment, that's my favorite project, working on it every day to try and solve the issues that come up. So it's all like, I don't know if you've used ROS a lot, but basically it's all going to be ROS serial. So it's very much like the Turtle bot, where everything runs on the Arduino compatible board, which is a Teensy in this case. It publishes all its messages off there. And then there's like one node, the ROS serial node, that runs on the Xavier, and the laser node. Navigation stack goes on a remote workstation. But there's a whole bunch of problems with, you know, the compatibility between the O-Drive library and the ROS library, and then ROS Arduino library doesn't work on a Teensy 4.1, so I've had to hack the library. So every day I solve a problem, and then it's my favorite again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had all sorts of problems with that, doing the exact same thing, actually.
Yeah, so I guess going off of that and generally off of the vibe of new projects and new robots, I was wondering where you draw your inspiration for your projects.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I think it's difficult because what's good is when there are good views on YouTube, when the video gets good views, regardless of whether it's sponsored by Lego or anything else. If the video doesn't do well, then I don't feel good about it. So I guess the inspiration is what's going to do well. But doing weekly videos, it's not always possible to do a Mark Rober every week, you know. So I guess some of it's a means to an end. So the video I put out this week, which is about very simple machine learning, it's transfer learning with NVIDIA Jetson Nano for a really simple shape recognition robot that navigates between markers, hasn't done very well, didn't think it would do very well, isn't very exciting. But then I did get all of the Jetson Nano out and go through all of the stuff and make a machine learning model work and work out how to do transfer learning and everything else. So as a result of that, I've got a project coming up it'll be 2 weeks now, which is, it's Wolverine claws.
Wow, yeah.
Right. There's a pair of those.
Yeah. Wow.
But there's a camera on a stick that looks at my face, and when I pull the face of Wolverine, then it ejects the claws. So hopefully that'll be a bit more viral, and then obviously moving on from that, I'll do some more projects that are more pop culture related, but they kind of have deep learning in them and all of that stuff. And the same will happen with ROS. I don't know how popular this robot will be, but you know, there'll be more sci-fi related autonomous robots once I've got my head around all those things. So I'm kind of taking it in small chunks to achieve something better in the end, I suppose. A bit like doing a degree, probably. But yeah, the inspiration is ultimately to do something better than anyone else has, I suppose, and get some good views on it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
So whenever you encounter a problem doing your projects, where, in your experience, is the best place to turn to for help?
I don't think there's any single source. It's probably Google mostly. It's generally the internet. I guess I don't really have a single answer for that. I mean, you know, the problem's working through all this stuff with the library. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, sorry. Ooh. Do you have frequent websites that you visit?
Not specifically, no. I mean, it really depends. So I was just saying all the trouble with these libraries is pretty much a Google search, and then it's a combination of GitHub issues log and the ROS answers and whatever else is out there, basically. And just trial and error a lot of the time, just trying to sort things out. And then sorting out TF and all the wheel odometry and stuff is multiple sources. But like I pretty much know how I should be able to do it because it's easier than the inverse kinematics for a robot dog leg.
Yeah.
But then it's still just have to sit down with a piece of paper that looks like this, and then draw diagrams and go, what is it? And then work out the trigonometry and realize it's not that hard after all.
Yeah. I guess that's definitely part of the engineering process, right? Just sorting out all the problems and whatnot. So I guess going along with that is, do you have a least favorite part of that design and engineering process, and if so, like why?
I know what's going to be harder, but then once I've done it, so what I basically do is, as I've kind of indicated, is take it in small chunks. So this project will have, you know, deep learning and stuff integrated into it, but I wouldn't try and do that all in one go. So it's kind of, I'm learning it as I go, doing little projects, learning a little thing. The first project I did with Arduino was the BB-8 that balanced its head balanced on a ball. That was my first Arduino project. And I've learned my lesson by biting too much off in one go, basically. So, you know, yeah, it's a case of learning building blocks to use in projects and being comfortable with them as I go. So learning about the Jetson Nano and transfer learning, learning a bit of ROS, and, you know, taking it in steps. I've done the ROS robot before. This one should be easier, but some of that code I stole off another project. So there you go. But yeah, just taking it in small chunks and trying to, as you say, solve the issues one at a time, really.
definitely. So, Jay, if you want to take the next question. You're muted, by the way.
Has being a YouTuber and an online personality altered your view of what it means to be an engineer?
I don't know if it's altered my view of, it's altered the way I think about being an engineer, sure, as I've said a bit. So it's all about really doing something that gets a lot of views on YouTube. I mean, ultimately that's where the money comes from. Whether it's because of ad revenue, it's because sponsors won't sponsor videos without good views on, or channels without good views. New reach for Patreons and YouTube channel members and all of that. So I guess, yeah, from my point of view, I'm quite focused on the content. And part of the process of making these things is basically film it as I go and edit it as I go. So if I'm building something and putting electronics in, I'll like do a bit of soldering, then film that and say, hey, I've wired this up, and then do the next bit. Especially when things need to be glued together, I tend to edit take by take. So I'll film it and then I'll edit it in Premiere, because once I've glued it together, I can't take it apart again. Yeah. So it's very hard to go back and reshoot it. So yeah, from that point of process, everything is centered around the content and the video.
Yeah. So a little bit going off of that. So do you think like YouTube, like generally these engineering channels on YouTube, especially yours, has been like a really important media for, I guess, turning more people to the field of engineering and like garnering more interest in the field?
Yeah, I really hope so. I guess a lot of people are inspired. I've been doing it for a long time. I've had a YouTube channel since 2007. So there was someone commented the other day that they used to watch it with their dad, and now, they're doing it themselves or something along those lines, or now they're doing it with their son, kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it is. I mean, that's generally where you go to for inspiration, and websites like Hackaday and stuff. You normally find an embedded YouTube video of the thing. So yeah, whatever it is, I think YouTube itself is a massive impact on society. So I think it influences everything as well as engineering.
Yeah, that must be really inspiring to hear like those kind of stories that you've inspired somebody to follow their field, like follow this field, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't get a lot of negative, I don't get many trolls. So it's mostly positive stuff. There's like once in a while there's a negative comment. So yeah, it's quite good, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an incredible story. Jay?
So is there a robot that currently does not exist that you wish to see?
I think that that's an interesting question. There's not specifically, but I think the kind of thing that's going to happen is, so I worked in the IT industry for a long time, since the 90s, and a lot of corporates, I don't know what you're running on your laptops and stuff, but most corporates, they're running Windows. Yeah. And all the way along since early 2000s, there's always this conversation about when will Linux be ready for the desktop? And pretty much it's never, because in corporations, they always have these weird and wonderful applications that are bespoke and are Windows only, and that's why they're still running Windows. But the conversation's gone on for ages and ages and ages. And, it was back in the days where, IBM are pushing Linux anyway, but Novell bought something called Ximian Desktop to make the desktop look more like Windows, and OpenOffice, and we used to have salespeople ring up trying to sell us support on OpenOffice. There's always some reason we couldn't use it, like weird ActiveX controls from some horrid thing that the business used. Anyway, so, it's pretty much this ongoing conversation about when's Linux ready for the desktop. But then what you've got, everyone since then's got a smartphone, right? And the smartphone's Android or it's iOS, which is basically a Unixy, Linuxy type of thing. So I think robots are really similar. And we think about films like iRobot, where there's, this humanoid robot cooking in the kitchen and pushing the vacuum cleaner around. But actually we've got a Roomba and we've got a dishwasher with a program and an oven that can make a whole roast dinner with a microwave combi oven, and you set it and it beeps and you put the foods in at different times. So I think to answer that question, it's really going to be a case more of like robots in a traditional sense. We're going to see more stuff like auto-driving cars and things where it's robotic technology, all of that AI, all of the mechanics and electronics and control systems, but they're going into more like appliance-based stuff. So I think that's really where it's going. I guess from that point of view, accessibility is something that I'd like to see more of. So you're probably aware of open bionics and, prosthetics and all of that good stuff. but I think there's a long way to go on that. So I think probably assistance devices and stuff that's not really a robot. Probably, is it a robot? You know, it can be intelligent. It could use machine vision to interpret how the user's feeling or what they want it to do, perhaps. Brain interfaces, all of that good stuff. So, yeah, I guess more of that really is what would be good to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of
to add on your point, you talked about Roombas and dishwashers. How important is it for the robot to resemble a human, or can it just be like independent systems that are focused on accomplishing that one task?
I think people are more comfortable when it doesn't look like a human, unless it really I mean, that's the uncanny valley, right? If it looks not like a human and it's a robot, everyone's happy. If it looks so much like a human that you can't tell the difference, everyone's happy because they think it's a human. But somewhere in between, people get uneasy. So yeah, iRobot with the robot assistants walking around the home doing stuff. It's a bit. I think that's uncanny valley.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be the sort of thing you think about from a sci-fi point of view. It'd be nice to have, but do people really want it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe one day, but I think for now it's going to be a Roomba, you know, a fat Roomba like this robot I've built here going around. And this is going to have a robot arm and a kind of head sensor thing on top, like Willow Garage PR2 or the Unbounded Robotics machine, but it's still very robot looking.
Yeah, definitely. I think the uncanny valley for these types of humanoid robots is quite deep. So, like having it go into that area of just like in between human and robot is just not great. So I think I think our last question here for you before we open it up to the audience is, so you've talked a lot about machine learning using TensorFlow, transfer learning in one of your latest videos. So given like the recent advancements of machine learning alongside the rise of like embedded systems, what kind of role do you see robots having in the future? So you've talked a little bit more about the technology going into appliances, but in the future, what kind of role do these humanoid or these types of robots actually have in the society?
That's difficult, isn't it? Because it depends how far machine learning goes ultimately. I think that seems to be, from my brief experience of machine learning, it's actually a very easy way to make a system do something like image recognition. Once you've got a neural net and you can do transfer learning, you know, you only need 100 images or something to pull out several categories, and it's pretty reliable, like 98%. So I guess it depends what else we can learn with machine learning. It's almost like a magic cooking pot where you put stuff in and the answers come out. And I can't claim to really know how that works exactly from a low level point of view. So yeah, I mean, I don't think as machines get faster and you can train them better or train them quicker, then I don't think there's any limit really. So, but definitely human perception, I think, is kind of a key one there to make interactive robots that do actually understand what they're doing and perception of their environment so they can navigate properly as well. Just being the old problem of, you know, the lost robot problem, like just taking that robot, putting it in the town centre and it being able to know where it is and find its way home. Which basically, you know, kind of brings robots up to where humans are to some extent.
Yeah, definitely. Right. I think those are all the questions that we have that we've already written, but the audience has a number of different questions. So some people have already submitted their questions ahead of time, and I'm sure people already have more questions given the time. So I guess we'll start off with the ones that people have already submitted ahead of time. So if you do have your own question though, and you didn't submit it ahead of time, then just click the raise your hand button and we'll try and get to it as soon as possible. So let's start off with Manraj, if I'm not butchering that name. If you're here right now, if you could mute yourself and send that question. Manraj, are you here? I guess he's not. Well, I guess I'll ask this question for him, for him or her. How did you develop your engineering skills in order to make the complex robots you make today?
Yeah, so kind of as I alluded to, I tend to do things in small chunks to learn them as I go, but pretty much now I produce a video every week. And most of the time it works first time, like the prints come out the right size and the right tolerance and things go together and the mechanics work as I expected. And I guess some of that's down to CAD and doing, you know, being able to move joints in CAD and check this clearance and stuff, which I didn't do when I was making parts manually a long time before 3D printing. But also a lot of it, I think, has just become down to experience and, you know, knowing what sort of thickness of a 3D printed part I need for, you know, the strength and rigidity that I need, when to use aluminium instead, and just my mechanical design skills getting better, I guess.
Yeah.
Or being able to work out what's realistic to code, even if I haven't written that bit of code before. But yeah, being cautious at the same time, doing it in small chunks. I think that's quite key, and not trying to do a monstrous project that I have no idea how to do in one go at least.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have a question from Ben. Ben, if you're here, do you want to unmute yourself and show your video?
Hi. So, as someone who like manages a lot of projects at once, what advice would you give to someone, you know, who wants to like take on a lot of projects but maybe not have like a lot of time to do that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's difficult because I do it full time, although I didn't used to do it full time, and I still did weekly videos somehow, and sometimes I did 2 a week. My strategy now is kind of like, I don't know, let's call it time packing, where basically for a start, there's 9 3D printers, which helps me a lot. And I've got a Trello board where I plan ahead several weeks, which I'm using as a calendar, even though it's in a calendar. And I think it's just a case of being the most efficient you can at designing a piece and getting it printed in time to have it ready when you need it, kind of thing. A lot of the stuff I do is 3D printing, which is, I should mention, has been a massive help. So this robot's, you know, it's big and it's all 3D printed. It's printed with a massive nozzle, but the prints were still around like 12 hours, and there's 4 of them for the main body, and then the tires are 3D printed, and that's 24 hours each. So just sort of starting in time and predicting when I need them and what's likely to be realistic for that video, which is why the first one's only the mechanical build, because that took long enough as it was. It's a weekly video, but it still took more than a week because I started before that when I was doing the project the week before that, whatever it was, which probably didn't have that much 3D printing in. So yeah, it's just a case of managing it, I guess, and trying to schedule the resources. And it's only me, so I don't know if you're talking about a project where you've got other people working on it and you can delegate some stuff. But yeah, just learning to be efficient, I guess. Another thing through the experience of having done all the projects, I guess.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Ben, for that wonderful question. So up next, we have Peter, who has quite a few questions. So if you'd like to ask your questions.
I think a lot of the questions you people have answered already, but
okay.
How do you ensure you finish your projects to the end? I guess like when you start multiple projects, sometimes I don't know. Yeah. So how do you ensure you finish all of it?
Well, that's a bit of a thing, isn't it? Because I don't finish that many projects. So yeah, there was someone posted actually the James Bruton drinking game, and one of the things was you have to drink if you finish as a project. But yeah, I don't, there's lots of things that aren't finished. So I'm just looking around. Yeah, so like Open Dog 1, don't think that's ever going to walk. Then I did the 2 mini dogs, which kind of worked, but it's pretty much ongoing development. So I think from a finishing point of view, the video gets finished, so it's presentable, but then the project itself may just, you know, fall by the wayside. So, I mean, even Open Dog 2, it walks, but there's still a lot more to do. But now I've got interested in doing more stuff with Roz, which will eventually find its way into that project. But, you know, if I don't do the video, then some people will complain, actually. But no one should complain, really, because the last video was conclusive about what I did on it. And, I finished in that video what I intended to do, but the project's pretty much ongoing development. So we can come back and put Roz on it, or do something with force control, or something with gesture recognition, or is like another 3 different videos that could be made next. But it doesn't really matter which one. And it doesn't really matter if I don't do the other 2 for another month. Obviously this is quite different to if you are working on a university project probably, or you're working in industry where there's probably some deliverables and they actually want a finished thing. But for me, it's quite different because it's about content.
Thanks so much, Peter. I think we have another question from Kai. So Kai, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, hello. My question was about the kind of technologies that you use. So like you mentioned before, your videos are really inspiring. It's inspired some of our projects, especially the one that we're doing at the moment. And
Okay.
for example, we've been using O drives and Teensys and using fully drive systems that you've been using. And so it was great to see that, like someone doing that and then being able to really incorporate it into student projects. And I was interested to know what kind of new technologies do you see in the horizons for like people like us in student societies or hobbyists to be focusing on and looking at if you have any kind of ideas or views on that.
It's really hard to predict, I guess. Yeah, so I've only just really started putting single board computers in projects prior to, I think that ROS robot, possibly. That's the first time I've used a Raspberry Pi in a project, basically, or anything. So it's, that's, you know, kind of, I mean, I've done a bit of Linux and stuff before, but it's, you know, that's a new thing to me as it is. And the whole machine learning thing, that's happened quite recently with obviously faster computing and NVIDIA and GPU and all that good stuff. So I'm still catching up with that. But yeah, for the future, I guess more manufacturers like that building stuff for makers, or at least accessible stuff. So making machine learning really accessible with a, you know, $100. In fact, they've released the 2 gig Jetson Nano now. It's $59. You know, a thing you can buy. It's cheap enough, and there's some software that's easy to use to make it do a thing. So pretty much anyone can pick it up and do machine learning. Plug in a camera, do transfer learning, and you know, hit some GPIOs with the answers, and there's your project. So I guess more, it's hard to say exactly what, but more stuff like that around AI, I guess, on hardware and kind of unified stack of operating system and associated code.
So trying to make technology a little bit more accessible. Thanks so much, Kai.
Is it all right if I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Floor. So you mentioned about how you like divide your time and go through your projects. How do you try to divide the time between like mechanical development, electrical development, and the software writing? Because obviously the mechanical stuff takes quite a long time. Maybe not with 9 3D printers, but like the assembly and you know, you might not get the part exactly the right tolerance or the to the requirement of the project. So I'm quite interested to know how you go about like planning these like technical steps and how much time you allocate to each one.
That's a difficult one. So mechanics, I tend to find go right first time usually now, because I kind of know the tolerance of the printers and stuff. Yeah. And how big to leave internal holes for things to fit in and things like that. But even if I have to print it again, then there's enough printers to do it. So yeah, that's not such a problem. Then you know, then the electrical wiring, it depends on the project. I tend to underestimate that slightly, and it's like, oh, I've got to solder all these connections up now. But then once that's done, the rest is only software. But then obviously there's some unpredictable problems, like trying to put ROS on this Teensy with the ROS Arduino thing and make the O drive work at the same time. Which has taken far longer than I thought, because you know, it's straight away it doesn't compile and there's a bunch of problems. So it's difficult to predict until you've actually done it. But now I've done it and I know how to make those things work together. The next time I know how long it takes. So the next project or the next part of this, perhaps it'll be another O drive, and there's basically going to be an arm that goes up and down the stick that's on this robot, or a body that goes up and down. So I'll have some sort of thing driving it, probably have another brushless motor. You know, that'll be much smoother because I know that the thing already works. Or at least I've solved the conflicts in the libraries. And the next project will be easier again. So if I want to do some sci-fi project that's an autonomous robot that's got brushless motors in, then it'll pretty much be a copy and paste as opposed to having to work it out from scratch. So I guess a good example of that was the OpenDog 1 with the ball screws and the motors. That was the first time I'd really used O drives as well. And then performance robots, which were my two humanoid robot torsos I take to events. That's basically, I copied and pasted the CAD for the linear drives out of OpenDog.
Yeah.
And I knew it'd all fit, and the code was pretty much a copy and paste as well.
Yeah.
So I made that project much easier.
I see.
So I guess it just comes down to doing it in small chunks and the experience.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Next up, we have a question from Anonymous. We've seen a change in what you've worked out over the years, from your original robotics on your website to your costumes, and now back to your robotics. Are there particular factors that cause you to change on what you've worked on over the years? Or is it mostly just YouTube and the response from people?
Yeah, so when I was doing Iron Man videos, I was doing around 1 million views a week on YouTube, and now I'm doing about 1 million views a month. So I guess, you know, as I said, I'm 44 now. I can't really go around dressing as Iron Man until I'm 65 and I'm retired or whatever. So, and I'm probably capable of better things than building huge things out of foam. And I guess that's one of the reasons that, you know, it's my full-time job, so I've got to do something that I'm interested in and I'm inspired by. And I guess that's why I've kind of done more, I've gone into more depth to do technical stuff and do more projects. That said, as I said before, if I can apply that to, you know, a sci-fi project to get some more views in, and that works out, then that's really good. So the next thing I'm going to investigate is, you know, the OpenBCI brain control, brain hacking things, brain computer interface. In fact, that's what BCI stands for. So I probably will do a sci-fi project out of this, maybe a Dr. Octopus tentacle you can move by thinking, but we'll see how that works out. So yeah, from a kind of, as I said, getting good views on videos inspires me. So from that point of view, doing the technology on one hand is interesting, and then trying to push some views in by making it into something mainstream interest is that's kind of was supposed to be the strategy for a while, but I've got caught up in the robotics so much I haven't done many pop culture projects. But yeah, I'm conscious that one of those things has mainstream interest and the other one doesn't. And if I've already done the thing about machine learning, then I can just say, hey, I did a video, but now I'm going to apply it on this. So we don't have to sit through tons of code, and it makes the video really accessible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's just kind of like the ebb and flow of the audience as well. So just remind everybody before we go on to our last couple questions here that we have written down. If you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand or pop them in the chat so that we know to answer them. So don't be afraid to just ask questions here. This one's another question from Anonymous. So how much have you used your IoT message board since you built it, or has it ended up in a box?
Yeah, so I already took the Raspberry Pi out to put in the barcode scanner guitar version 2. So yeah, I haven't used it.
Fair enough.
I'll probably use the e-paper display on this robot though to like show its IP address when it boots and things like that. Possibly.
Yeah, you know, that's fair enough. Reusing parts. And Jacob, you have your own questions, so if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Sure. So what would be the project that doing it you found the most fulfilling, or that you now remember the most fondly?
Oh, probably OpenDog version 2, because I spent I can't remember when I started OpenDog version 1. Was it 2 years ago? And then there were 2 test dogs for quasi-direct drive, and then the 2 mini dogs, and then that kind of all got me to the point where I did OpenDog 2, and then it walks, and that's really good. So I guess that's the most satisfying piece of work, robot dogs, that I probably like the most, and it's gone the best in the end. Having done lots of the R&D, and you know, having done that actual R&D for quasi-direct drive with those 2 test dogs, and then put it in something I've made. So quite happy with that whole work stream. I'm not sure if the audience is happy of having sat through 20 OpenDog version 1 videos and it not walk, but that's, you know, part of the learning exercise. I learned quite a lot from that project, including how to do the inverse kinematics and interpolation and all that stuff. So, you know, that stuff's got copied and pasted into the new ones.
Okay. And along similar lines, what is your motivation for making robots for YouTube rather than a company? Is it that you get greater freedom, and well, you can work on a robot dog when you decide that that's what you're interested in, or?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, I worked, well, 20 years in the IT industry, pretty much 10 years of that for one company. I spent years trying to get out of corporates and doing things for other people. So yeah, pretty much freedom. I can come out of anything and say, hey, this week it's Wolverine, let's do that. Or whatever I want, really, within reason. I mean, eventually it'll ruin the channel if I kept making rubbish, but hopefully there's a positive kind of, as I said, about making technology, putting it into something popular that gets me somewhere.
Hopefully there's also a lot of people that enjoy the technical rubbish.
Yeah. I guess coding are the most unpopular channels that I subscribe to, at least the ones with the worst views, are coding channels. Because even though, when you need to know, you really need to know, but there's not that many people who actually watch them for pleasure, I think. Whereas someone with Wolverine claws activated by facial expression, perhaps that's a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. It's an ongoing, evolving strategy.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jacob, for your question. Oh,
we have a question from Rikesh.
Yeah, there you go.
Hello. Right. Yeah, I was just wondering, what do you think is or / will be in the future like the most practical interface with robots? Because I mean, do you think it'll be like speech or like facial expressions or brain control or yeah?
I think it might be a combination of those. I mean, think about how you interact with other humans and animals and things like that. It's probably all of those. Brain interface is very interesting, but that I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how far that you would take that to drive a car or something. Although probably the machines that you could use for brain control will probably be autonomous. So I think probably for companion robots and things, then that's optional, or human-to-human communication with brain interfaces would be quite interesting. But probably for machines, it's the kind of what we perceive now, at least, as natural methods of communication with gesture and speech, facial recognition, that sort of thing. Whether brain interfaces become what humans use as a natural interface in the future is currently a thing of science fiction, and I can't really say. But yeah, so I think the machine learning stuff's really interesting, that you could, have a robot dog that can easily do gestures and make it do different things, and it can probably work out what your face is doing just with a Jetson Nano. So the future's here already, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Rakesh, for your question. We have another question from Adam. So, Adam, what if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, hi. So basically, do you have a favorite collaboration that you've done with other YouTubers? And if so, who would it be?
Yeah, so the one I did with Mark Rober for the Auto Strike bowling ball. And the main reason was that I met Mark Rober, and he also made a video that was basically an advert for me, and 80,000 more people subscribed. But actually, it was quite a fun project because it was actually really easy to build from, compared to a robot dog. And it was a fun kind of mainstream project. So I guess it's a bit like the Wolverine claws, but, bowling's quite mainstream interest. So, and I guess he's got kind of a knack of doing that for most of the stuff he does. Has some technology in, and he also somehow has the ideas for the thing that's got the most mainstream appeal, and that's really why he's on trending with every video. But yeah, that was good. So he came over and hung out, mainly because I was still trying to finish it at the last minute. Yeah, we had quite a lot of bowling balls cut in half, which cost him a lot of money that he had shipped over, but some of them weren't round and all sorts of weird issues. Originally, I was supposed to take it to the US, but it just wasn't ready for it to be done and get the video out. So yeah, it's quite good. Mark came over and we hung out at the local bowling alley. Yeah, it's good. I think it was a good video.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Adam, for that question. Along with that, we also have another question from Kai about collabs as well. So,
Hello again.
Yeah.
Like Adam said, you collaborated with Mark Rober and Colin Furze and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you, what was the kind of difference in experience or process in getting the projects made? So was like compared to your normal timeline, I guess, working on your own, to get these videos made. So I guess two parts, like one part is like, is the technical development actually done by yourself, or was it more like a really collaborative thing between the two YouTubers? And also, how did the video processing, production stage change?
Yeah, so the bowling ball, pretty much, Mark had one idea, which was to float an inner ball in an outer ball in oil and have it all sealed and have a flywheel spinning in it. I didn't fancy that. So basically he contacted me and said, what do you think? And I said I'd have a look at some ideas. And then I did it at the speed I normally make projects. So the next week I kind of had a working prototype that pretty much you could throw and steer. So it was pretty much as I make videos anyway, but then it was a bit longer to get all the bowling balls cut in half and actually make the final one. So there wasn't any particular time pressure there. It was quite casual. And the only time pressure in the end was he needed the video for that month. So he came over and, and we took it to a bowling alley. So that probably went slower than most of my other projects. And the production, I filmed my bits as I was doing it. He filmed his bits. Then he gave me some of the footage. I gave him some of the footage. And then we just basically mashed it all together and, showed him the video before I put it out. And he was happy with that. So that was all good. The ones with Colin, though, have largely been ones which are sponsored. So the two big ones were for eBay, which were when Colin built a TIE fighter and I built BB-9E. And then we both worked on that Hulkbuster. Both of those were under incredibly short timescales. So they're around 6 to 8 weeks. The first one, I didn't really work closely with him because I built a separate thing, but I still had the same time to get it done. And then we just went to the shoot. So again, I filmed my video like I normally do. But then the production company actually made the final video and then just produced a video for each of us and said, these are the videos to put out. That was a week-long shoot with a catering truck and a medic with an ambulance and 40 people on site and Disney executives and, CEO of eBay UK and all sorts of people came along. So that was a completely different experience. And the second one I did with Colin was Hulkbuster, which is pretty much the same, other than, I had to do the control electronics and design all the cosmetics to fit on the thing that he was building as he was building it. And all the cosmetics had to be approved by Marvel in the US, which meant sending the production company, sending them to Disney in London and then passing them on to the US and then coming back a week later saying, oh no, can you change that contour there? As well as having to make it all so it could be rolled out of sheets of steel in one direction because he couldn't make compound curves at the time, and driving to Lincolnshire to find he'd changed it again and didn't fit it. So yeah, it was quite interesting. But yeah, pretty much all different experiences depending on what it is. I did another collaboration with Ivan Miranda, which is another 3D printing YouTuber, where we tried to make rockets that would fly up and land on their bottoms like SpaceX. And that was a challenge, so we both just made our own, and then I flew to Spain, and then we crashed both of them. But that was more of a funny video. That was quite casual as well, because it didn't really matter what happened, and we didn't have eBay saying, or Disney or whoever saying you've got to make it in time for the week before the movie goes out, just the kind of deadlines we get. So yeah, it really depends who it is and what it's about, and if it's just for fun or whether there's massive corporations breathing down your neck.
Was that the case with your Iron Man videos as well? Like, or was that absolutely unrelated with Disney or?
No, that was just my own stuff. Yeah.
Right, I see. So this is only
just
when
abusing their IP.
Right.
But yeah, the big steel Hulkbuster I made with Colin, that's sponsored by eBay and approved as all Marvel for Avengers Infinity War.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. We have a question from Richard. So.
Yeah. Hi. It's
hi.
great to meet you. So my question is sort of a bit about, like, I guess the future of your channel a bit. So we're just talking about collaborations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see like a lot more collaborations coming on in the future? And also, you say you're a sort of like a one-man band at the moment. Do you ever see the sort of channel growing to a point where you feel you might need to like bring on an editor or like someone else to help you technically or something?
Yeah, so sorry, what was the first part of the question again?
Sorry, the first part was like just about collaborations in the future. Do you have any more plans for that?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I'd like to do. I was supposed to do another one with Ivan and potentially other people, but obviously what with coronavirus, no one's traveling anymore, especially to Spain. So it's really difficult. There's sort of a collaboration that I'm filming next week with a PC building channel, but that's mainly to push some traffic his way because he's getting all my PC parts for free. which means we're going to have to wear masks and face shields, I think, to do the video and all of that stuff. Yeah, so sorry, I can't remember the second part of what you said now.
The second part was, do you ever see, so you say you're a one-man band
Oh yeah,
at the moment.
other people. Sorry, yeah. It will be okay, I think. I've had people film stuff before, and I've tried to edit it, and I find that really difficult. So I think someone would have to film and edit it.
Yeah.
But they'd also have to understand what I was saying, and it'd be very difficult to send footage and have someone edit it because they have no idea what I was talking about probably, and what goes in the right order. And as it is, I review every shot as I go in case I misspeak or the shot's bad. And I realise when I do it, whereas if someone else was editing it, they just wouldn't know and it would be rubbish.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be very difficult unless they were actually here sitting next to me. And I tend to work at random times, so it'd be a bit of a weird role. You'd have to kind of get an office space and regiment everything.
Yeah.
Like a working environment and all of that. I mean, it's not out of the question, but it would also cost a lot of money. So at the moment, there's not really budget either. So kind of happy doing it casually. And, I think Colin Furze is the same. He just likes to kind of work on it and make the video himself and not feel too much pressure, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I might stick in another question whilst I have the floor. Are there any projects that you like to do that you feel you can't do because of the requirement on YouTube and stuff, to have it interesting to a wide audience and things?
No, not really. Most of the projects I want to do are things which would be more appealing to a wide audience. The restriction is generally space to do them. So like 3D printing a car and stuff like that. But yeah, need to move house first.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a CNC machine and welding equipment and all that stuff, but it rarely comes out because most things are small. But yeah, one of the plans was to either make from scratch a Back to the Future DeLorean or Ghostbusters Ecto-1, completely made from scratch with a steel chassis and 3D printed car, pretty much. But yeah, there's nowhere to put that right now. So.
Oh no, that would be incredible. Okay, thank you.
All right, I have one final question for you. Do you agree that anyone can do robotics?
Yeah, I think so. Why not?
All right.
I can't think of more to the. I can't think of a reason why not.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
So a lot of people think that there's a high barrier of entry. You need to know a lot of things before you can do robotics. So we, as a society, we want to show people that, robotics is accessible to all. And yeah. Yeah,
so I guess going on from that, my advice to people when they ask me is pretty much to learn Arduino and go on the Arduino tutorials somewhere, like the Adafruit website that tells you how to move a servo and do multitasking pretty early on. And, as I said at the beginning, all those things that have become open source, all those modules and libraries have made stuff much more accessible. So it's probably easier than people think to do something and get into it and learn as they go. And it's just a case of carrying on then and committing to it and learning the next new thing and the next new thing. And 3D printers are pretty cheap, so I guess it's down to your own kind of will to do it more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. If there's a will, there's a way, right? So yeah. So I think that's all we really have time for. So thank you so much for joining us, James.
Okay, no worries.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's actually in pretty much all of the emails that we sent. But if you'd like to give the link, James, if you have it off the top of your head.
Yeah, it's youtube.com/James Bruton. Hang on a minute.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to his YouTube channel. He makes some incredible things on his YouTube channel. And if you'd like to learn more about these types of events and just get notified about these types of fireside chats and also about the Society's robotics projects, there's going to be a sign up for a mailing list that's going to be coming through the chat. And also, please, if you have the time to, please fill out this feedback form. We're looking to trying to get feedback for these events and trying to make them better and have some more interesting questions going forward. So if everybody could direct their attention to the chat, there's a feedback form in there, and I will go. And please subscribe to our mailing list. It's also on our website as well. Our website also has the subscription for the mailing list. So if you could subscribe to our mailing list as well, that'd be amazing. Yeah, so once again, thank you so much for your time, James. And thank you everyone for coming. It's been a really great event. Thank you for giving your insight into robotics and what you do as a YouTuber.
Okay, no worries.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.